Matt George agreed to join us. He said we could talk as long as we want. He's covering the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, but the host of the Locked On Kings podcast said he's only interested in talking about the Usher press conference he just left.
That's true. That's true.
I love out of the three of us, it was you that went to the Usher press conference. That's terrific.
Hey, I'm just trying to catch up with you two. But no, it was definitely an interesting event. Of course, Reba McEntire was there. Post Malone was there as well because they're singing before the actual Reba's doing the national anthem. Post Malone, I think, is doing either God Bless America or America the Beautiful or something like that.
Why are we doing that?
I don't know. We talked to them, or we heard from them, and then Usher came out and heard from Usher a little bit. So no, it was a cool event to go to. I definitely felt out of place, but there were also a lot of other Caucasian journalists in the room going, well, I guess we're supposed to be here.
Matt out there with the shade room.
Well, I'm sure there were other, there's people there to see Reba McEntire, and Usher's got pretty good crossover appeal. So
it was cool. It was very cool.
I'm confident I know the answer to this before we get to the Kings in all seriousness. You've got to go to the 49ers practice. That's at 4:00. That's why you're on early, right?
Correct.
So you're not going to make your way over to the T-Mobile Center and see The Rock and Roman and Cody Rhodes.
I was very, very tempted to. And of course, I saw the signage for it. It's like, how can I figure out a way to get over there? I really, really want to, but unfortunately, responsibility gets in the way. So I'm not going to be able to.
Kevin to the 49ers practice.
Well, they can't do that because he put Kevin in concussion protocol.
Well, I saw that. I did see that.
Personal foul, blindside hit.
Live on national television.
It was clean. I went right to the chest. It was a clean hit. He spent too long in the pocket.
The helmet. It was the crown of the helmet.
Nah, I was perfect. Led with the shoulder. It was a perfect hit. It was a perfect tackle. No, I really wish that I could go. I'm not going to lie to you. I saw Rock's hit on Pat McAfee this morning, and I felt that even though it was Rock, not Dwayne, it was very much a Rock promo. I felt that it was kind of tone deaf because the issue, of course, I don't know why we're talking about this on trade deadline day, but I don't really want to talk about what the Kings didn't do.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay, my bad. I'll fix this. Tell me your thoughts on cash considerations.
Anyway, back to the Rock. When I just thought like the whole issue with this Rock stealing Cody's spot has less to do with Rock stealing Cody's spot, I think, and more to do also with Rock kind of being the head of TKO or amongst the head of TKO. And it's almost like the boss just came in and said, me. So I thought Rock's, I didn't have as good of a reaction to Rock's little promo on Pat McAfee as I thought I would have. That being said, I'm excited about the match. I've been wanting Rock and Roman for years, so I'm definitely invested.
I wouldn't sign up for it just yet. I just wait to get through to tonight. They just can't be this dumb. They can't go against the entire audience like this. We'll see.
They do it all the time. That's something else you said yesterday. You were like, they got to give them something to be happy about.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's 50-50.
What's 50-50?
Always upset with wrestling.
Well, that's facts. That's facts. No one watches wrestling like wrestling fans.
50-50 that they give the fans something to be happy about.
Well, the Kings gave no one anything to be happy about today or last night. Matt, you watched the game from Las Vegas. It seems like it was a familiar sight. The Kings play a team with a win percentage of like 0.140 or something like that. And come fourth quarter, they get their ass kicked by a second-year player.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm dripping in sweat right now because I came running back from the Mandalay Bay media area because I initially was going to do this from there, and I was worried that I was going to get a little too heated and a little too loud to disrupt the work of the other hundreds of media members that are there. So I ran back to my hotel room. So if I can start yelling now, or I'm in a place where I'm safe to yell now, that performance makes me think back to the Memphis performance. It makes me think back to why I was so pissed off and why I was so upset. And the Kings found a way to win that game. And everyone was like, why are we getting upset about wins? The Kings won a basketball game. It's like right there. That is how the Sacramento Kings continue to play in games that they absolutely should be winning. We can't just ignore that because they won the basketball game. Jump forward a couple of weeks later, the Kings lose at home to the Indiana Pacers, I wish it was the Pacers, to the Detroit Pistons after a very successful road trip. And I immediately think back to that Memphis game and go, is it really just okay that the Kings won that Memphis game playing that way? Because here they are playing that same way at home against a now 7-win team that was shorthanded of all things. They don't even have Cade Cunningham. Bojan Bogdanovic, this was before he was traded. He did not play last night. Killian Hayes was playing, and he just got dropped by the Pistons today. He's unemployed. And you let him come into your building and beat you like that when you're at full strength. Like, this is the issue with this Kings team that I have, is they just 2 steps forward, 1 gigantic step back. And I think the step back is consistent. They keep taking that step back in the same way. They're either getting blown out at home to teams like New Orleans or Boston, the teams in that tier that they're trying to get to or believe they are in, or they take on teams that they should absolutely be beating and either just barely scrape by them after playing like crap, or they lose at home and deserve to absolutely 100% be booed. This was the first game in, I think, 2 seasons that I have missed inside the Golden One Center. And part of me is glad that I was not there. The other part of me wishes I was there to hear and experience the fans and the frustration that they vocalize, because they're absolutely justified. And just like they're justified with their frustrations with the trade deadline today.
It's a situation where I'm the guy usually that comes in. Damien does it too, but I mean, just in general, like, hey man, it's the NBA. It's a long season. Games like this happen. Blown leads happen. Losses like this happen. Like, I'm usually the guy rationalizing it. And it's not even like an act or anything. Like, I really do believe everything that I say when they blow a lead against Phoenix. Like, damn, that sucks. But they've been playing well the last week. All this other stuff. I keep saying it. Last night was a joke, man. Last night was an absolute joke. That was absolutely ridiculous. By far the worst loss of the season. And to your point, Matt, it's something that's been indicative of this team all year long. Like, they are allergic to prosperity at this point. They have a great road trip. They can't build on that. They get a good win against whatever team, wherever, home or road. Then they come back and play Charlotte and they lose that game at home. Like, they are allergic to prosperity.
This team is 29-21. They're 8 games over 500. Record-wise, you take the context out of it, just look at the record and go, even with the state of the Western Conference, which is, I think, why the Kings had to do something at this trade deadline, and we'll get to that. But you look at the record from 1,000 feet up or 10,000 feet up, and you go, okay, this is a team that's well over 500. They were just 10 games over 500 a couple of nights ago. They just went on a 5-2 road trip. They're in a good spot. But then those of us who have actually been watching every single game, the reality is there are too many, out of those 21 losses, there are too many memorable losses than there are memorable wins for this Kings team in those 29 wins that they've had. And that's not the pessimistic way of looking at things. That's the reality. Like, you can list off whether it's last night's loss, it's getting blown out by the Celtics at home, blown out by the Pelicans at home, blown out by the Pelicans on the road, losing back-to-back games to the Houston Rockets in Houston. Both games you weren't really competitive in either one of those. Like, there's so many games that I can point to. Losing to the Pacers at home not too long ago. So many games that I can point to where it's just like these losses are concerning compared to, okay, maybe the cool, what was it, double overtime win against the Orlando Magic at home. That was a fun night. Hey, the night in Golden State the other day where the Kings beat the Warriors in an absolute shootout between 2 Western Conference teams. Hey, that was kind of fun. But the reality is, like, you watch this Kings team play basketball. Yes, they have a decent chunk more wins than they have losses, but the losses speak more to who this team is and specifically where they're headed compared to where they want to be.
So let's go to something that you just mentioned there a moment ago about the trade deadline. Obviously, the trade deadline has come and gone, and Phoenix made some moves. Dallas made some moves. Oklahoma City made some moves. The Sacramento Kings traded for Brook Lopez and cash. And
Robin. I wish it was Brook.
Robin Lopez, and then waived him. So they did nothing. And clearly nobody's pleased about that.
I mean, yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. That was just, you're right. They did nothing.
No, that's like, it absolutely stings worse because of last night's loss. But it's not just one loss. It's not just a overreaction to a loss and then a quiet trade deadline the day after. It's a loss that knocked you 2 places down the standings. It's a loss that knocked you from 5th place to 7th place. So from a playoff spot to a play-in spot. And you play a stretch of 9 games now coming up where 3 out of those 9 games are against the defending champion Nuggets that you've already beaten in Sacramento that I guarantee you aren't going to let you beat or aren't going to want you to beat them again. Right. And this is a Nuggets team that's now we're in the second half of the season. This is ramp up time for good teams. You also have the Suns in there. You have Oklahoma City Thunder, who's lost to you twice. You think the OKC Thunder are going to let you to come in on Super Bowl Sunday in a matinee performance and beat them again? Hey, maybe the Kings do. Maybe it's good that the Kings are playing better teams instead of bad teams. Maybe we should look at the Spurs game in the chunk of those 9 games ago. That's the one we should be most concerned about, knowing this Kings team and their inconsistencies against teams that they should be beating. That being said, last night's game does have a proper and important impact on what the Sacramento Kings did not do today, because you look at where the Kings are in the standings, you look how tight of a race it is in the Western Conference, and you look at the main teams around you, the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks, making moves to improve, going out and getting guys that would have made sense for the upgrades that you were trying to make to your roster, the fringe upgrades. Never mind Kyle Kuzma, never mind Jeremy Grant or these big swing moves. Who cares? Go out and get a Dorian Finney-Smith. Go out and get a player who can come in and bolster a weakness to this roster, a glaring weakness, which is your wing depth, your athleticism, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", long athletic defenders that can help you on the perimeter. Because what I'm seeing right now rearing its ugly head is a massive weakness of the Sacramento Kings. Maybe their defensive rating has improved, but Will Z put it out. The Kings are now giving up one of the highest three-point shooting percentages in NBA history. They're allowing almost 40% from three-point range on a nightly basis. It is not a coincidence that the Cavs shoot 50% from 3, and the very next night, the Pistons do. 2 teams shot 20% better than their average against you in back-to-back nights. That's not you getting unlucky because a team got hot against you. That's you doing something wrong. And if the issue really is you lack the length and athleticism to close out on shooters because you want to try and crash the paint and stop ball handlers and cut them off, if that's the issue, then go out and get a guy that's not, sorry, Kessler Edwards, that's not a guy that is a fringe rotation or fringe roster player. Go out and get an actual NBA caliber player that fits the athletic and physical attributes that you need to play halfway decent perimeter defense. I don't know, I don't blame the Kings, and I'm not suggesting that Monty slept through his alarm or just sat on his hands, right? Like you need 2 to tango. You need a team to ultimately agree with the trade that you're trying to make. But nobody's going to feel sorry for you for not getting a deal done. You are judged based off of the moves that you make or not make. And that sometimes not making a trade can be just as bad as making a bad trade. This Kings team has a massive glaring hole that they did not address for the 2nd straight year. And the difference between last year and this year is teams know who you are, teams know how to beat you, and you're not surprising anybody anymore.
I love the idea that Monty thought the deadline was tomorrow. Oh, I just missed it. He's calling teams right now. What? No way. That's crazy. That's crazy. Slept through his alarm. I don't know,
12
man.
p.m.
I did bring up that damn AMP. He got an old school alarm clock, like one at one at the really old hotel. Where are you? Where are you at, Matt?
Out, so
I'm in the Luxor Hotel right now.
Hey, shout out to the Luxor.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Luxor.
Yeah.
That's good stuff right there.
Let me see if I can take you to see my.
It's a tour of the Luxor. I like it.
It's not a wander around like the Chase Center, but I wanted to show you my view because I got lucky because that's a Allegiant Stadium right out
very
there.
Nice. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So that's terrific.
Looking forward to watching and covering a good team playing a game.
Now it's hard to. Vegas is always difficult. That's probably not a walk, right?
Oh no, it is. Yeah, well, they have the place locked down like Fort freaking Knox. So we have to walk all the way through to the other side of Mandalay Bay. Then they shuttle us over, but still drop us off like 2.5 blocks away from the stadium. And then we have to walk through all the security. No, we don't get to go over the bridge. That's for fans only. We have to go all the way around the backside where the media entrance is.
Okay, very good. Well, it's exciting. You get to cover the Super Bowl. And
that's great.
Not the Sacramento Kings losing to the Detroit Pistons and doing nothing
I can't believe that.
A day later on the trade deadline. Did you happen to catch any post-game remarks last night?
You know, I read and saw some of the quotes that were posted. I did not see it. I got back to the room, recorded the podcast, and basically went to sleep. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to hear from any of them. I saw Fox and Sabonis spoke at the podium. Great. Like, I'm glad the issue of sending Keon Ellis out there after bad losses is over, and we don't have to talk about that part. But I don't know, like, what are they going to say that's going to be any different from what I've heard? That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Yeah, we've heard that a million times at this point. So freaking do something about it at this point.
It's not exactly what they said. Domas was clearly upset. Malik spoke at his locker. He was very upset. Mike was furious.
Mm-hmm.
And, De'Aaron was like, it's a loss on the schedule.
Yeah. De'Aaron, that is De'Aaron.
Yeah, and that's been a big focal point of the show today, of the conversation today. In the 10,000 foot view, as you were talking about earlier, man, and that's exactly what it is. It's one loss. It's one loss on the schedule until it's not, right? Until you're at the end of the season and you're a game out of the 6th spot, and you start thinking about games like Detroit and Charlotte, and you start thinking about games like even Milwaukee, where you lose because you were missing free throws. There was a point where the Kings were down 5 and had missed 8 free throws, I think 7 free throws. I don't think they even shot another free throw. I think that's how many they wound. I think they were 15 to 22
they shot one
on the day. Yeah. And so it was like, oh, look at that. And I think part of that played in, like, Detroit hadn't missed any. So it's like, oh, look at that. Free throws are a thing again here. But and I'll stall De'Aaron out, I guess, just a little bit. Like, yeah, he's right. It's one loss on the schedule until it's not. Until you look back later and you start to think about games like ones like this team. I think it was King's Film Room or King's Muse. Someone posted the 3 teams that have lost to Charlotte and Detroit. The Kings are the only good team that's lost to Charlotte and Detroit.
Nasty, man.
That's tough, man. It wasn't it wasn't a good night, Matt. Wasn't a good night at the podium for anybody.
Yeah, for me, De'Aaron speaks in 2 ways. There's De'Aaron at the podium who, if he's going to be upset, it's in his body language, not in his words. Maybe it's in his short answers. But De'Aaron speaks through his body language when he's angry. De'Aaron speaks on the court the way that he plays. That's what I pay attention to. Like, De'Aaron has been very open about, like, how he handles games and how he mentally gets through tough losses, and he's done it more often than he's gotten through wins here in Sacramento. Is he kind of shrugs them off and lets them go the second he walks out the building. Whether you and I want him to treat that differently or not, that's how he's wired. That's how he gets through an 82-game season. Ultimately, as long as he shows up when it matters the most, that's what's important. But exactly, as long as he shows up. So the way De'Aaron speaks on the floor, how De'Aaron plays, he can say all he wants about tough losses or not, but how is he playing in those tough losses, and how is he playing after those tough losses? The 12 points says way more to me than anything that he said or could have said at the podium. And that's I think where De'Aaron is at right now is I talked about this on the pod last night. There's only one player on this roster. His numbers aren't always the same, but there's one player on this roster that I see fighting every single night. It's Domantas Sabonis. That's the only player that I see fighting every single night. Some nights, like last night, he has 30 points. Other nights, he has 12 points. But typically, it's been 33 straight double-doubles. Sometimes it's in a triple-double. Domantas Sabonis is making some sort of impact on the game every single night. And then you have nights where Barnes is playing well, but Keegan's missing. Herter's playing well, but Fox is missing. Fox is going for 40, and nobody else is doing anything. And then you also have those nights every once in a blue moon, like there's a game during the road trip where the Kings had 4 players scoring 20-plus points. That version of the Sacramento Kings is unbeatable. I'm telling you, it's unbeatable. But it's once in a blue moon. Like, it just doesn't happen very often. I don't know what it is about this Kings team. I think back to what Harrison Barnes said after the Warriors game about sacrifices, and some player has to be the one to set screens instead of get shots that given night. And I understand there's only one ball and so many shots to go around, but you can't have nights where Keegan Murray completely disappears because another player's playing better. You have to find a way to get the majority of your core, not necessarily your roster, but your core 4 guys. 3 out of the 4 of them have to be able to perform at a average to above average level on a nightly basis. And this Kings team has too many moments where one guy, Domas, is consistently putting up numbers. Sometimes you'll get 40 or 30 point Fox. Sometimes you get 12 points. Sometimes you'll get Keegan going for 40. Sometimes Keegan's 15. Sometimes Keegan's in single digits. Harrison is either really, really good or non-existent. Kevin's either in a funk or shooting well. Like, I don't understand why this Kings team can't figure out how to come together and put it together. That's a concern of mine.
Quick follow-up.
Go ahead,
Yeah, because you said something about the 12 points says more to you than anything he'll say at the podium. What does the 12 points say to you?
That I think that what it says to me is De'Aaron Fox was okay coasting in that game. I think what it says to me is, and he's not the only one, it says to me that this Kings team knows that they're good, knows that they're not great, has kind of accepted who they are, and still believes that's going to be good enough based off of last season and based off of the vibes to get them into a playoff spot. And maybe they're right. Like, this is still a good core. The fact that the Kings didn't make any changes to this roster at the trade deadline doesn't mean that this roster is not still capable of making it to the playoffs and even making it beyond the first round of the playoffs. I do believe this team is good enough to do that and can accomplish that. I just don't want them to wake up and start to try to do that come April, when there's a very good chance at the end of that 9-game stretch that I just laid out for you, they could be at the beginning of March. Like, we're talking March 2nd, March 3rd. We're talking the home stretch of the season. The Sacramento Kings could be in a play-in picture with a tough climb to an actual playoff spot. Like, that's what this Kings team is staring in the face. And what I saw from Fox and what those 12 points say to me last night is there's no sense of urgency there. That they recognize that they're an 8 or 9 game above 500 team at the time, but the Western Conference being what it is does not matter to them, because sometimes they're going to win, sometimes they're going to lose. We are who we are, and that's just the way it is. The Kings have not earned the right and are not good enough to feel that way, because are who they are last year was a 3rd seed. Are who they are this year in the Western Conference, with teams having more of context and more of a scouting report on you, and it's easier to figure out how to beat the Kings this year compared to last year. Are who you are could be a play-in team, and nobody on that roster, especially your star, should be satisfied with that. Especially when your star was one of the 2 people saying contender, was saying that word, contending for a championship. It was it was Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox, the 2 guys who said those words on media day. Both of them. They were the only 2 to say the word championship. One of the 2 of them is not performing like it.
Well, you know what it reminds me of a little bit is like how, like, you probably hear this a little bit as well, Matt, but definitely in our culture, in the 1025 culture, everybody want to talk about how they a boss. I'm a boss. I'm a boss. Da 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 da. But they don't, like, a lot of them don't really know what entails being a boss and the sacrifice and the hard work and everything that you have to put in to be a boss, the sleepless nights, the rejection, not all that stuff. They don't really know what it just sounds good to say, I'm a boss, right? It almost feels like the same thing when you talk about contender. You want to be a champion. We're trying to win a championship. We're trying to do more. Like, it sounds good. It sounds like what you're supposed to say, but the level of focus, the attention to detail that you have to have every single time in your practices and your games, all this other stuff, it doesn't seem like they understand that's what makes a championship contender. That's what makes a team that has bigger goals. It's one thing to just say it, like, it sounds good to just say it, but are you really applying yourself the way you should if you have higher goals? I'm not here to answer that. I'm not in the workout room or the practice rooms or all that. I'm not questioning their work before that. I'm questioning their results. That's what I am questioning. It doesn't feel like you're taking the steps necessary to be that contender you say that you are or you want to be.
Guys, it might be a little too early to talk about this, but I think De'Aaron is approaching a crossroads. Because think about what Mike Brown said at the end of last season, his postseason press conference. He says, Mike has coached the greatest players, some of the greatest players to ever play this game. He coached LeBron. He's coached, like, Steph. He's coached Kobe at one given time. Like, he knows what it takes to be an absolute superstar in this league. And he has told us, and I believe him, I don't think he's lying to us and just hyping up his guy. He has told us De'Aaron Fox has everything, has the capability of being a superstar, being one of those guys, being one of those greats. And the reason why I believe him is because he always follows it up with, but here's what it takes. It takes committing to being that every single day. And that commitment to being that every single day is still what lacks with De'Aaron. I'm not accusing De'Aaron of anything. I don't know him well enough or personally to be able to even suggest what his mindset is. But if De'Aaron is satisfied with being the star and being a max contract or high money contract player on a good team that is at best a first or second round playoff exit, good for him. If that's what he's okay with, if that's what he's satisfied with, that's his motivation other than making, like, instead of making all-star games and being on Team USA, if he's really just okay with supporting his family, making a boatload of money, being a really, really fun and good basketball player on a team that is destined to only be good and never be great, if that's his motivation, I don't think the Kings can change that. But if that's his motivation, then he's not living up to the potential that Mike Brown sees in him, and he is not the guy that the Sacramento Kings can win a championship with. I want to pump the brakes really quick because I'm not suggesting that is what is going on here. And I'm not even remotely suggesting that the Sacramento Kings should be concerned at this point in time about building around Fox and having Fox be the type A guy, the alpha of a championship team. He showed it to start this season. We saw how good he can be and how he can score with the best of the best in this league. I do believe a healthy De'Aaron Fox get to the playoffs, we'll see that again. But games like last night and the ups and downs of a season sometimes make me question, like, what is Fox's motivation, and can Fox accomplish what Mike sees in him, but what Mike is challenging him to be? Fox has always said he wants to be coached. Mike is the first guy to truly come in and coach De'Aaron. How is he coaching De'Aaron through this stretch? Is it middle of the season, dog days, hey, rest up, stay healthy, we'll make our run later? Or is it, you got to commit to being great every single day, 12 points against the Pistons isn't good enough?
Hey, real quick, because I'm seeing this a lot. We got 3 media people on here. Jimmy James says he's freaking hurt. Chill. This is news to me.
Yeah,
De'Aaron's hurt?
I don't think that.
Oh,
He wasn't hurt on
because
Saturday.
it's news to it's news to us.
He wasn't hurt on Saturday when he had 41.
Look, De'Aaron.
He must have just gotten hurt then. Like, right, but did he? It actually wasn't Chris Duarte who rolled his ankle. It was De'Aaron.
De'Aaron has his
something's going on with De'Aaron's shoulder, but we'll get to that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
and he's had monster games with it.
He has.
He's had monster games with the shoulder. Has been that way since like December.
It's wild.
He has his bumps. He has his bruises. He's playing. He was very open about the fact that when he returned from that ankle injury that he suffered, it's not like the ankle is healed. You're just able to play through the pain. We've seen him favor his shoulder. De'Aaron gets knocked around. I also do think that's one of the reasons why he's settling more for 3-point shots in the middle of the season and getting downhill less and less, is because he doesn't want to take more shots around the rim, which is what, think back to De'Aaron's rookie and sophomore season in the league. Fox was always getting downhill and half the time was ending on the floor. He looked like Gerald Wallace half the time. Like, he was just always getting bumped. So De'Aaron has always played through injuries. And when he suffered the worst injuries, whether it was the broken finger in the playoffs or the grade 3 ankle sprain that he came back way early from a couple seasons ago, De'Aaron will fight through injuries. It's not questioning De'Aaron's heart. Maybe De'Aaron is banged up. Maybe he's not 100%. That's fine. Most of the league isn't either. If the Kings training staff is telling him to go, more importantly, if he's telling the Kings training staff, I'm good, I'm going to go, at that point, hurt is out the window, right? You're the star. You're on the floor. Don't allow your team to get cooked by Jaden Ivey and the Detroit Pistons at home. I don't care if he's hurt or not. That can't happen. And you're the face of you're the star. You're the leader. That can't be happening.
You know what else can't happen, Matt, in my opinion, is I think Mike Brown made some mistakes last night.
Yes.
And there's one particular mistake that I think he made, and I think it involved Keegan Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Keegan Murray was obviously having a rough game. He couldn't get into a rhythm. He had 4 fouls. But once you get to the fourth quarter and Jaden Ivey is lighting your ass up, there's absolutely nothing to lose by getting Keegan Murray off the bench, putting him out there. Hey, whatever went on earlier in the game, snap out of it. I need you to go be the best defender on this team. And if he does it, great. That's a plus for you. If he doesn't, well, he was sitting on the bench anyways. And I think that was a terrible, terrible miscalculation by Mike Brown. And I don't think that happens to Domas. I don't think that happens to De'Aaron, and I don't think it should happen to Keegan Murray.
I agree. I agree 100%. Whether he had 0 points or 20 points, Keegan Murray needs to be on the floor at that point in the game, especially when you're being cooked on the perimeter. And regardless, like Keegan has shown that he can hang and guard twos. He can even guard ones at times on the perimeter. He did it to Steph Curry a handful of nights ago. Like Steph Curry had that really, really good first quarter or first half or whatever it was against Sacramento. And then Keegan got switched onto him, and Steph, I think he had like 18 points in the first quarter and then 15 points for the rest of the game or something along those lines. And Keegan was a big part of that. Keegan is a versatile defender. He is your best defender. And he is not just your best defender. He's literally statistically one of the best isolation defenders in the league. And Jaden Ivey cooked you in isolation last night, period. Now, I also think it was schematically a problem for the Sacramento Kings because you're playing the Detroit freaking Pistons, right? You're not playing the Boston Celtics. You're not playing the Los Angeles Clippers. Like, don't leave Jaden Ivey. If Alec Burks beats you, so freaking what? If Killian Hayes beats you, that's when I'm okay saying, hey, tip your cap. But I'm not tipping my cap at Jaden Ivey going for 19 points in the fourth quarter because Kevin Huerter decided to leave him, or whoever was on him decided to leave him to help player X who may or may not have an NBA career going forward on a 6-win team who is attacking the basket. Trust your interior defense to play halfway decent and to be able to stop a bona fide G League player or rotation player. Don't leave the only guy on that roster worth paying attention to. So it was a schematic issue, and it was a Keegan Murray issue or a lack of Keegan Murray issue. I agree 100%. I think Mike Brown got too cute, and he does that from time to time. He likes to reward the players that are playing well and keep them in there, and I get him wanting to be a coach's guy in that, or a player's coach in that sense. But your best defender is sitting on the bench when you're getting torched in the fourth quarter, when you really only needed halfway decent defense to make a run and come back in that game, and you blew it. That was absolutely a mistake by Mike Brown.
The other thing about that, Malik Monk talked about, I thought was a good point, and it, opened up the discussion for another issue. Is he said, we get caught in these rotations all the time. Well, you get caught in rotations because people are getting beat left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody got to keep their guy in front of them, and they got to stop relying on. And I know it's the NBA; these guys are unbelievably talented offensively. The rules, help them out and all this other stuff. But somebody got to stay in front of somebody and not rely on, oh, I've got the help, so I won't work to keep them in front of me. You know what I mean? Because if you're not making the right rotations, if that's not your strength right now, that you can't rotate effectively and stop the 3-point shooting the way you haven't been able to, then somebody's got to say, you know what? I got to keep this guy in front of me because that's not our strong point. Our rotating and all this other stuff, that's not the strength of ours. If we're going to be better, I got to do a better job of keeping my guy in front of me. And that's one place they could start to get better.
Mm-hmm. And who's the best guy at that? It's Keegan Murray. And you had him sitting on the bench because he had a tough night. Regardless of how well you're scoring and how well you're shooting, the one thing you can always do, Mike talks a lot about control what you can control. One of the things you can control is how much effort and how hard you play on the defensive end. That was an opportunity on a bad night for one of your core 3 players to give him an opportunity to turn a bad night into an okay night and be an important difference maker in a comeback and a victory at home. And you let him sit on the bench instead. Whether you were punishing him or not, it's the wrong decision. And you lost because of it, or partially because of it.
I don't think it was punishment. I think he felt like he didn't have it. And I think he used it. And I think this happens with Mike sometimes. I think he just got too cute. Like, put him back out there. Again, if it fails, like it fails. I'd rather fail with Keegan out there than him watching.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even talk about such a, Malik talked about, I don't like that stuff. I don't like getting booed. I play too hard. Like Malik and Trey had that whole second unit with Davion Mitchell included. They had a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
And that's one of the reasons, sorry, Matt, but that's one of the reasons why I empathize with Malik feeling that way, because it wasn't his fault what happened last night. Malik was playing his ass off. Trey Lyles played well as well. Domas, just to mention 3. But I understand him not liking that. But I also don't think somebody was necessarily booing Malik Monk last night.
Right.
They're booing the Sacramento Kings, and you get cheered as a team, you get booed as a team, and you got to wear the good and the bad as a team. You got to wear that. You know what I mean? And that would be my thought on it. Like I understand you don't like it. You work hard, all this other stuff, but you got to understand the situation. And I know Malik does. That's embarrassing last night. It's embarrassing for everybody involved, the players, the fan base, the media members that want these guys to win. That's an embarrassing performance and outcome last night. And you get what you get. You get a couple boos, so be it.
Yeah, that comment there, Kenny, reminds me of what you've said a number of times this season, that they're mad or bothered by the wrong things. Now, I don't blame Malik for not wanting to get booed. Nobody wants to get booed, whether they're on the floor or on their home floor or on the road, unless you like taking that hostility and use it as motivation. But nobody wants to get booed by their home crowd. But does Malik think that those boos were not justified based off the way the Sacramento Kings were playing, the expectations on this team, and the embarrassing loss at the hands of a 7-win Pistons team? So, like, there's no follow-up question needed. I don't need Malik to speak about that any more than he did, because I don't want him talking about that. But if you're bothered by the boos, look in the freaking mirror. And I think that's the thing. Like, where do the Kings go from here? It's not just Friday against the defending champion Detroit or Denver Nuggets responding to the Pistons loss. Now you're responding to whether he tried to get deals done or not. This group is still here. For the second consecutive year at the trade deadline, your team opted to keep this group together. How are you going to respond? Are you going to reward that commitment, or are you going to prove the fans who say that the move needed to be made, or the people outside of Sacramento who said you had to make a move to be relevant or to be actual serious contenders, are you going to let those people be right? Like, you know nobody's getting traded. You don't have to worry about losing a friend in the locker room at this point in time. You have your jobs, you have your spot, you have your roster, you know what you can be. You've shown what you can be. You know you can contend and beat anybody on any given night. And apparently you can lose to anybody on any given night. But you shouldn't accept that. Like, how do the Kings respond at this point? Do they recommit to the fancy little contract that Mike Brown drew up and had them sign, that they're going to give 110% to what they're doing? Do they recommit to who they can be as a Sacramento King and say, you know what, we're tired, we're exhausted, we're banged up, it's the middle of the season, it's hard to get up and play a team like Detroit, but damn it, we're going to do it because we don't want to get booed anymore. We want to win. We want to be better than last season, and we're still together. We know each other. We know a wrench isn't coming and throwing us off anymore. I'm not in jeopardy of not just losing my job. I'm not in jeopardy of my family being moved or being sent from a playoff team to a team like the Washington Wizards. Like, that fear is over. They committed to you again, whether it's the right move or not. Now commit to being the best version of yourselves, or at least playing and trying to be that best version.
And one thing real quick I want to say, to be fair to Malik Monk in that comment, we don't know the context of what he's talking about he's mad at. Like, he it could come off as like saying, oh, I'm mad at the fans for booing because I don't like that S. He could be saying, I don't like that. Like, I don't like getting to the point where we're getting booed. I work too hard for that. I don't like that. Not getting mad at the fans. So there was no follow-up question or elaboration on that. So I want to be fair to him because he hasn't shown any other signs except being stand-up since he's been here. So I'm going to be fair to him and be like, we don't know exactly what he meant when he said, I don't like that. He could just not like it and understand that it was justified in that moment for the fans to feel that way. So just wanted to say that about Malik.
You're 100% right, Kenny. 100% right.
You excited for the rest of the weekend?
I am. It's a grind, man. I mean, a week in Vegas in general is a grind. And I'm proud to say I've made it through 4 nights in Vegas without stepping to a table or a machine or anything like that. And I think that might be a Las Vegas record. So I'm pretty proud about that. But these are long days.
Money in a
No, don't
machine.
do that. Like, go to
you?
Vegas with me. That's exactly what we would do every night. No, don't do that.
Now, put a quarter in a slot machine.
You're just fine, Matt.
I'm trying to find a show to go to. I want to go to at least one show if I can get a night off, and I think I'm going to go check out the Michael Jackson show, the Michael Jackson
do that
show.
Yeah,
so I'm thinking about trying to check that out. But I mean, this is a once in a lifetime experience. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work, but like it's a privilege to be able to do this, to be able to be around professional athletes, to be able to sit in the same room as Reba McEntire and Post Malone and Usher and all these people, like, or to stand 4 feet away from Brock Purdy or from Travis Kelce and the biggest, best athletes on the planet, Patrick Mahomes, and to be able to do what I do. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky. And my journey to get here is in large part because of people like yourselves, because of Locked On Kings listeners, Sacramento Kings fans, ESPN 1320 listeners. Like it's an unbelievable dream to be able to cover a Super Bowl, regardless of who's playing it, regardless of how long the days are. This is just a crazy experience that I never, ever, ever thought that I'd be able to do. So I'm tired for sure, but I'm unbelievably grateful, and I'm excited to be in the building. Whether I'm in the nosebleeds or not, I have no idea where I'm sitting. I don't really care. I'm going to be in Allegiant Stadium for Super Bowl 58. And I'm going to get to watch, like when we watch on TV, all the flashes go off on the opening kickoff, right? I'm going to get to be one of those flashes to say I was there. And it's unbelievable. It's just a very thankful moment for me.
Real quick, you got 15 seconds. Who do you think's going to win?
49ers. Yeah, Niners are going to win. No, Niners are the best team in football. I've said that all season long. I'm not changing now. The Niners have proven during these playoffs that they can win games that are ugly when they have to come from behind. I don't think they're going to be able to come back against the Chiefs the same way they did the Lions or the Packers. So maybe don't make that part of your game plan, Kyle Shanahan. But I think this is also kind of a redemption arc for Shanahan, too, with the things that he struggled with. Though the 49ers are a better football team. They're a more complete football team. And I don't want to even fathom the idea of the Kansas City Chiefs winning in my Raiders building. So